It's like the benevolence of God, so it was grace that saved a wretch like me, as the song says. But in the Aluna worlds that we watch through trance, we can see grace is this vast body of information. It's data-driven. It's laden with information. And we believe that a lot of the information that we see in the morph is grace, but grace has information in it. It has like digital fractal codes that we understand more and more, albeit we're just at a rudimentary stage of knowledge, but we've been looking inside those worlds, myself and my friends, for about 8 years. And there's much of it that we understand. I mean, grace can heal anything. Grace can give you information that no other scientist has ever thought of. Grace can compose music. You can hear operas, and it's all there. And so we look at grace more technologically as providing evolution, information, inspiration to people.
To be in that state, state of grace, let's say, do you have to be a good person?
I think so, George. At least you have to, have a sort of live and let live attitude for humanity,
Yeah, I think so,
and
too.
not be too critical, and not to be judgmental, and not to be too fast to judge. And you have to allow humanity their weaknesses, and you have to allow people to rip you off and hurt you and still love them all.
Not easy, though, allowing that, Stuart.
No, not easy. But I think you have to be able to do that, because otherwise there's always some bitterness inside of you, and the bitterness will take your soul into these hell worlds.
I mean, I was watching this story today unfold of it happened in Canada, where a young man was sitting on a bus next to the wrong person, and this person takes out a knife and cuts his head off, Stuart.
Jesus.
You remember that case? I don't know if you remember it. It happened in Canada.
Well,
okay, well, today the judge ruled the guy's insane, so he's not going to stand trial for murder. He's insane. Well, I think you have to be insane to do that, first of all, but yeah. I still think the guy's a criminal. But his family, the family of the victim, they're upset because they think that, their loved one was murdered. This person should be punished for it. If you're in a state of grace, aren't you supposed to forgive that individual who did that to the person you cared about? I don't think I can.
No, I'm not saying that people can't necessarily forgive something like that, but we're supposed to, yeah.
What's the Gaia part of the book mean?
Well, Gaia is this idea that the planet has an intelligence. It knows how to correct itself.
It's alive.
It's alive. It's a sentient being rather than just being a rock in space. And we believe Gaia to be sacred, so we see Gaia as a goddess. We see her as a sentient being overlooking the animal kingdoms, the vegetable kingdoms, the pollution, the humans, the forest, and so forth. So we would say it's Mother Earth, but it's kind of a fancy name for Mother Earth.
Well, I believe in that theory. I think if there's anything that can live on planet Earth, like plants and trees and people, the planet itself has got to be alive. I've always believed, Stuart, that it fights. It heals itself. It corrects itself. It does whatever it has to do to survive. What do you think?
That is correct. There's a lot of evidence for that the planet is self-correcting. Biologically it's self-correcting,
And then you have end of days.
The end of days.
Oh, my God. So, is this like biblical end of days? Armageddon? It's all over for us?
No, I believe that this is just the end of the world as we know it, George, There's sort of mass consumerism. But I don't believe the world's going to end tomorrow, It's the end of days as we know it, that the extremes of consumerism and waste and lack of cooperation and isolation and loneliness, those things will pass, and that the world will become more community-oriented.
So you believe we're going through a period of adjustment?
Yeah, exactly that, to come out, better in the end. Because it's a fact of the ego and the desire for materialism and the desire for importance that has isolated people. So they all live in little boxes in Manhattan, let's say. But because of the crisis and because of these changes that are going on in the globe, they're going to have to come out off their ivory tower and join humanity and work with other people in order to survive. But I don't see it necessarily as a sort of pole shift or cataclysmic event that will rub out the whole world.
So you don't see an asteroid plopping down on us or anything like that?
Well, we have seen those visions of asteroids coming in and so forth. But again, it might be very well, in the same category as my prediction of the earthquake in Seattle in November 2 or 3 years ago.
True. You speak of worlds called Aluna. and
Yes.
morph. What are they?
Well, these inner worlds that we see them as a mirror world. So, like my right arm is my left arm in there when I see myself in there.
Okay.
It's facing us like in a mirror.
Are we all in there?
Yeah, we're all in there. And that, you see, one of the things that really fascinated me was when a person dies, what remembers them after they're dead if the brain is gone, because that's the function or that's the mechanism of remembering. And so what I realized was that we're all in this mirror world. We have like a doppelganger, a second person, And that person there has all of our memories, all of our feelings. It does all the things we do. And so when you die, you don't go to a spirit world because your doppelganger image is already in there. Your mirror self is already in there.
It just picks it up.
It picks up from where it is. So in other words, people are in hell already today. They're just alive on the earth and in hell in the lunar worlds. Or they're alive on earth and they're in celestial heavens in the lunar worlds, bliss worlds, what we call bliss worlds. And so the Aluna is just the word we gave it because the South American shamans call that mirror world the Aluna, which means of the moon.
Do you think sometimes, Stuart, that those two worlds kind of cross with this physical world?
Yeah, there's no question. The stuff blips in from the mirror world to us, and we definitely have an influence in the mirror world. And certainly if you can put your arm in there and start knocking off ghouls, you can definitely have an influence in there.
Some people have seen their doppelgangers. Some people have looked at themselves. Is that crossover?
Yes, sir. That's definitely it. There's no question of it in my mind, yes.
That's kind of scary, huh?
No, it's okay. It's okay. I've seen myself in the mirror world hundreds of times, hundreds upon hundreds of times. Sometimes I'm acting, sometimes I'm fighting. Sometimes I just see myself looking at me. It's looking at me and I'm looking at it.
But you're trained. That's not happening by accident, is it?
No, I mean, I've been doing this trance states thing for 20 years. I have a tape series out somewhere, probably on Amazon or with Hay House or something, called Trance States, and it just has all these various metronomes, and it talks about how to generate a brain speed of 4 to 7 cycles a second and stay awake. I mean, we all go into trance every night. We go into these very low brain speeds when we sleep, but the trick is to go into that 4 to 7 cycles a second. They call it the theta brainwave. I'm sure you might have heard of that.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, to go into the theta brainwave state and stay awake. And so once you can do that, then gradually the visions will start to come, and then gradually you'll actually see into these mirror worlds.
Are we being tested for something, Stuart?
I mean, I think the whole of our life is a test. It's a test to become heroic within ourselves. It's a test to surmount problems. It's the test to give when you haven't got much to give. It's the test to forgive, if somebody kills you on the bus or whatever. So I think in a way we are being tested, but I don't think there's a sort of wagging finger God up there that's testing us, that wants us to have a hard time.
Yet what about creation? How do you think this all started?
Well, I'm not a great believer in the sort of biblical version of creation because it doesn't go back far enough, Intelligent design sounds good.
Yeah.
I believe that like the beings, the humanity walked in from those lunar worlds, that like humanity, the physical humans existed in these other dimensions, and they just walked out of those dimensions into the earth plane.
Well, who thought it out? Somebody had to put it together.
A human might be very, very much older than the universe. Do you follow me?
Yeah.
The idea is we could have pre-existed this universe 13 billion years ago. I mean, what if a human evolved ever so gradually over a trillion, billion years? Do you follow me?
But you do believe in intelligent design?
Well, essentially, I believe that humans walked into this world in small groups and began to propagate, and that's what became humanity that we know today.
Interesting. How did you get to this belief system? And how long have you been thinking this way?
Well, just by watching the Aluna, really, and watching the visions. I saw a very beautiful vision once. It was so moving. I saw this very simple man. He wasn't Neanderthal, but he had a kind of quite hairy body, And he was lying naked on these leaves in a forest. And he suddenly woke up, and you could see that he's only just got here on the earth plane. And he woke up and was stumbling around. He didn't know where he was, but there was this feeling that like somehow he'd been placed there,
Stuart, we're going to come back and talk about the worlds of some of these magical animals you have seen on Coast to Coast AM. Now, we're basically talking about the other dimensions through the eyes of Stuart Wilde, so we'll be back with Stuart in just a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Are you a member of Streamlink? Well, you can for just pennies a day. Go to the coasttocoastam.com website, and you can sign up, and you get downloads and podcasts and all those other great things. And also at the same time, you can also sign up for the free Coast Zone newsletter. You just fill out a little online application, and